What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. Michigan State goes on the road to College Park and defeats Maryland 27-24 in the first Big Ten game of the season and the Jonathan Smith era. A big time 27-24 win in which a game that Michigan State had to bounce back and show a lot of resilience in multiple phases and different times throughout the game. We're going to talk about it. Obviously, the big stories were Aiden Childs hit kind of up and down game, but really incredible game overall. And true freshman wide receiver Nick Marsh. We're going to get to that here in a second, but first, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down below for more Michigan State content as we move forward throughout the season. So let's just get it started. We're going to start with the really good for Michigan State, and the two standouts in my eyes, Aiden Childs bouncing back from a lackluster week one, game one of his starting tenure here at Michigan State, and he'll be the first to tell you that he did say that in the post-game press conference following last week's Florida Atlantic game. He bounces back 24 for 39, 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So you saw kind of both sides. You saw the incredible 77-yard bomb to Nick Marsh, who the other guy we're going to get to here in a second. You saw that. You saw a long touchdown pass to Jerron Glover as well. You saw him fit some balls into some nice windows. Montori Foster down there in the end zone as well for that first touchdown of the game in the first quarter. But I think the most impressive thing for Childs was his ability to bounce back. When he did throw an interception, he was able to flush it, as they like to talk about, come back out, next drive, bounce back, still make plays. That doesn't mean every time after an interception that they came right back out and scored the next drive. But he was able to get back and continue making plays and didn't let things kind of steamroll that you sometimes see with younger quarterbacks. That was amazing to see from Childs. Obviously, still a lot of stuff to clean up. I know Jonathan Smith, I haven't done a full rewatch of the game too, but watching Jonathan Smith's post-game press conference, he did say some of the stuff with his footwork just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Obviously, I think if Jonathan Smith is talking about his footwork, would love to see that. I know that he did still kind of airmail a handful of receivers on some of the balls. He never comes up short. I'll give him that with his arm strength, but sometimes the ball does still sail on him a little bit. Second game of the season, second full game as a starter. Again, I am not worried. Able to bounce back, and he had the ball in his hands with about 2 minutes to go win the game. They needed to go down, have a field goal. They faced, I think, 2 third downs on that drive, was able to convert some big plays on that drive to set up the Jonathan Kim game-winning field goal, which we'll get to that in a second too. The other guy that we just want to single out right here, Nick Marsh. True freshman, wide receiver, 8 receptions, 194 yards, which, by the way, second all-time by a true freshman in a game, besides, you guessed it, Ricky White in that 2020 Michigan State at Michigan game. He had a touchdown as well, that 77-yard bomb in the fourth quarter as well. Came up with some other big catches as well at big times to get first downs, keep the chains moving. And this is just really exciting. This is kind of what we were all... This was like best case scenario. If you take out the Childs interceptions, this is exactly why we were so excited. The Aiden Childs, Nick Marsh connection for the future. Aiden Childs, true sophomore. Nick Marsh, true freshman. These guys can have a long, successful career at MSU, and seeing these type of results early on, and especially this isn't like, no disrespect to like FAU, like obviously they gave us trouble last week, but Maryland is a solid team with a solid defense, and you're putting numbers up like this in your second career start, in your second career college game for Nick Marsh. That is amazing to see and bodes well for Michigan State going forward. Is it going to be like this every week, every game this year? I hope so. I'm sure you hope so as well if you're watching this video, but it might not be. There's obviously some tougher games on the schedule coming up, so we're just going to have to be patient. Aiden Childs is going to get better. He's not going to throw 3 interceptions every game or 2 interceptions like he did last week. It's going to get better in terms of the turnover portion of the offense for Michigan State. Now, after we shouted those two guys out, want to just kind of go down the list here. On the rushing attack, one of the big questions coming into the week was, is the Nate Carter, K'Ron Lynch, Adams rushing split going to be more even? I thought that it was going to be a little more even, but I thought Nate Carter would still outrush him. He did, maybe not to the degree that I thought. It was 11 for Nate Carter, 10 for K'Ron Lynch-Adams. They combined for just over 100 yards. What's that, 105 yards? 59 for Nate Carter, 46 for K'Ron Lynch-Adams. Neither of them did get a touchdown because Trials got all three of them through the air. But I know Jonathan Smith did talk about it in the post-game press conference as well. Need to get a better push to create some more lanes for those guys up front. And obviously, too, still a young offensive line and new offensive line as well. And we got right before the game Christian Phillips out for the game. Sounds like could be out for the season. I don't believe that is official yet, but that is what it is sounding like. So we wish him a speedy recovery as well. But again, this offensive line, as we said last week and going into this week, it's going to take some time to get some reps together. And now, especially since we're still kind of rotating some guys in there, obviously going to have a new right guard coming in there as well, moving some things out, left tackle as well, rotating some different guys in there. So it's going to take some time to get their footing, but I expect the rushing attack to slowly get better through the weeks. Even as the opponents do get tougher, I think that you'll see a more balanced attack from what it seems like from Carter and Adams. And I think they'll be able to, that offensive line will be able to create some more holes for them. Through the air, we already talked about Nick Marsh. Jerron Glover had some nice plays as well. He did have that touchdown pass from Aiden Childs. 6 catches, 84 yards. Montori Foster, nice bounce back game for him. 6 for 53 and a touchdown. Jack Velling, 3 for 25. But I think eventually Jack Velling will break out for this team. I mean, he's an amazing safety blanket for Childs. And obviously a lot of attention has been focused on him, given that he, coming in to this year, was was the most known and proven receiver in that group in terms of wide receivers and tight ends. So a lot of attention has been drawn to him. On the defensive side of the ball, Charles Brantley did get an interception, and this was kind of forced by, it was a little slant play, a couple yards off the line of scrimmage. Darius Snow got in, was able to break it up, tipped it up, and Charles Brantley was able to come down with it about 5-10 yards, 7 yards back. Sacks, listen, we said that we did not think they were going to get 7 sacks again like they did last week against Florida Atlantic. They got 1 this week. They did have 7 tackles for loss. So obviously against a more experienced, more talented team in Maryland, was still able to get a handful of pressures. Would like to see them finish more and get some more sacks, but that was also a very elusive quarterback there in Maryland with Billy Edwards Jr. Overall, solid job. Jordan Turner leading the way with 2 tackles for loss. And then kicking, Jonathan Kim, 2 for 2. Perfect, had a 50-yarder as well, 3 for 3 on extra points as well. And then, of course, the game-winning field goal. Then, of course, the game-winning field goal by Jonathan Kim with 1 second left from 37 yards out. So this was a total bounce back from the Michigan State offense. 493 yards, outgained Maryland, who had 339 total yards, and outgained Maryland on the ground, 130-86. The penalties, little bit cleaned up, still some work to do on that end. 10 penalties for 100 yards, but when I do the rewatch of this game, I don't recall from the game, I don't think any, or definitely not a lot of them, were the ones like week 1, the costly 15-yard penalties. I can maybe recall 1, if that. You don't want 10 penalties in a game, but that number's going down. Still early in the season. Overall, happy with that number right now, but want that to slowly start coming down. Do like the not as many back-breaking 15-yard penalties, though. That's nice going forward. So Michigan State 2-0, 1-0 in the Big Ten. First place in the Big Ten Conference. I say that half jokingly because obviously this was the only Big Ten game played this season, but we're running with it while we can. But I think in a lot of people's minds, this has possibly changed some people's perspective. This is still where I thought Michigan State would be. I said they have a really good shot, and I predicted them that they would start 4-0 to start this season. I said at worst, I think they will go 3-1. They are now very much in line to, at worst, go 3-1. Prairie View A&M coming into Spartan Stadium next Saturday, and then on the road at Boston College before you start to get into that 4-game gauntlet of Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, and Michigan. So next week, handle your business against Prairie View A&M. Then you go on the road to Boston College. A game, yes, Boston College has looked pretty good. Obviously beat Florida State, and they looked good in that game as well. That'll definitely be a tough game, especially on the road. But like I said, at worst, you start out 3-1. If you can steal a game, that Iowa game, and with how Michigan has looked this weekend against yes, obviously a top 2-3 team in the country in Texas. That game, especially with their quarterback, kind of back and forth, I wouldn't write that game off, especially since it is a rivalry and all that. But if you can steal, obviously, either the Iowa or the Michigan game, if you can steal one of those, and then your last 4 games, again, are winnable as well. I don't see why 7 wins is still not doable. Again, I went the optimistic route and said 8 for the season, but I still think 6-7 is still kind of the minimum for this team. I said a bowl game is the minimum requirement for this team, and my expectation for this team and minimum is a bowl game. 6 wins. Off to a great start, 2-0. We'll be back this week to preview Prairie View A&M on Friday. Excited for that one. Excited to get back in Spartan Stadium. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.